Chapter.
Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. It's 6:30, and you are at a Common Council of the City of Wasa meeting. Welcome. The first thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so I hope you'll join me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next up is our roll call.
Begin voting. There are 10 of the 11 members present.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have proclamations. I do have one that I will be reading, White Cane Safety Day. Whereas blindness and severe visual impairment affect approximately 100,000 Wisconsin residents, and whereas the majority of these persons use travel aids, such as a white cane or a service animal to get around public streets and sidewalks and places of public accommodation, and whereas these travel aids are universally recognized as symbols representing vision loss, and whereas Wisconsin's white cane law requires that motorists come to a full stop before approaching closer than 10 feet to a pedestrian who is using a white cane or a service animal, and whereas careful driving and fully stopping when pedestrians are in the crosswalk is beneficial to all residents, including children, elders, and people with disabilities. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Katie Rosenberg, Mayor of the City of Wausau, do hereby proclaim October 15th, 2021 as White Cane Safety Day in the City of Wausau, State of Wisconsin, and I commend this observance to all citizens and acknowledge the importance of pedestrian safety year-round. We do have Denise Jess with us on WebEx, accepting virtually this proclamation. If she's interested in making some comments, I would welcome them.
Wonderful. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Madam Mayor and City Council members, I am just so grateful for your support of White Cane Safety Day and for the opportunity to just speak briefly with you tonight as you kick off this portion of your meeting. I'm Denise Jess. I'm the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. And I also am legally blind, have been since birth. So I live with vision loss and have that firsthand lived experience to bring to my comments tonight as well. If you're not familiar, the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired is a statewide, nearly 70-year-old nonprofit based in Madison. And our mission is to promote the dignity and empowerment of people living in the state with vision loss through advocacy, education, and vision services. And you may not know that while, of course, there are folks like me who have been visually impaired most or all of our lives, the fastest growing population of folks with vision impairment are our older adults, many who become vision impaired through macular degeneration or retinopathy as a side effect of diabetes or through glaucoma. So it's a really increasing population. So pedestrian safety is one of our top advocacy priorities because we're non-drivers. So we're really dependent on safe and walkable communities, and we're also very reliant on affordable and reliable public transportation. We're among the most vulnerable folks who are out on our city and community streets. We walk or take the bus everywhere to be able to achieve the activities of daily living, like getting to work, shopping, going to appointments, visiting with family and friends, and contributing to our communities. On a pretty much daily basis, any of us can tell you about experiences that we have had that are close calls. And those are regular in our lives, not just unusual, where we will have motorists who are either exceeding the speed limit, who are failing to stop at signalized or marked intersections, and where we have to, while we have particular skills for getting across safely, have to often do evasive maneuvers to keep ourselves safe. So I want to just take a moment to thank the Wasa community, because as I've talked with advocates in your area, I know that you've installed many more pedestrian signals and accessible pedestrian signals at particularly troubling intersections. And if you're not familiar with those, they are awesome, and they are literally lifesavers for those of us with vision impairment. When the button is enacted, not only do you get the walk light, you also get a sound. And research time and again shows how much those signals have helped reduce accidents and fatalities for vulnerable users, including those of us with vision impairment. But, you know, like all communities in the state, we still have a long way to go to create greater access and greater safer communities. And you've got some amazing advocates in the Wasa area. So my encouragement to you all is to keep up the good work and to also reach out to those folks. Have them walk you across some of the more concerning intersections in the city so you get, you know, a real lived experience of what that's like from our perspective, and, you know, listen to the ideas and suggestions that they have and partner to create even a safer Wausau. So I just want to thank you again for your generosity of declaring the 15th as White Cane Safety Day. And please reach out to me at any point that you want to learn more about blindness and vision impairment, that you want to learn more about pedestrian safety. We would love to partner with you. And you can find us on our website, wcblind.org, or check us out on any of our social media channels. So have a great meeting tonight. And again, thank you so much for your public service.
Thank you so much for that great information. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. Next item on our agenda, pre-registered citizens for matters appearing on the agenda, another public comment. The first person I have signed up is Bob Reinertsen.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Is it okay if I remove my mask?
Yes, we don't have a.
Okay. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about the lease between the City of Wasa and the Wasa Cemetery Association that's on your agenda tonight. I understand that it's going to be taken out of the consent agenda and handled separately. My name is Bob Reinertsen. I am a member of the board of the Wasa Cemetery Association. With me tonight is L. Solomonson, our chair, and Gary Gisselman, a fellow board member. Just a quick correction to the report that Ann provided with your agenda packet. I am an attorney, but I'm not the lawyer for the association. I'm a board member who happens to be an attorney, and that's my capacity here. For some time now, I believe for 10 years, this lease has been in existence, and the city uses an area on the east side of the cemetery primarily for piling snow in the winter. I believe 10 years ago was the initial term, and then the lease provided for 2 extensions of 5 years each. This proposed extension would be the second extension. And I think on all accounts that it has worked well for the city and for the cemetery. The lease is due to expire on October 16th. We would wish to extend the lease for another 5 years upon the same terms, with one exception. The last extension provided for a payment from the city to the cemetery of $15,000. We are not requesting that. But otherwise, we'd like to extend the lease upon its present terms. We are aware of the Finance Committee's recommendation that the lease be extended, but taking out a provision that calls for a minimum 3% increase each year. Wausau Cemetery Association is a nonprofit, unlike the Rest Lawn Cemetery. All of our employees are part-time, low wages. We have a bare bones budget. We depend on grave openings, cemetery lot sales, and the lease payment from the city is the biggest source of income. Finance-wise, we're doing okay, but our aim is to keep it viable so that we can keep operating. As some of you may know, state statutes provide that if we can't operate, then the city takes us over. We don't want to do that. I'm sure the city doesn't either. So we would ask that you extend the lease on its present rent provisions.
Thank you. The next person I have is Alan Solomonson.
Hi, I'm Al Solomonson, president of the Wasa Cemetery Association, and we run Pine Grove Cemetery. I want to start off by saying we've had just excellent relations with the city of Wasa. They've come to our aid a lot of times, and we're really pleased about that. And Pine Grove Cemetery is really an attractive place on Grand Avenue, and I just have to mention that because so many people coming from out of town or something say this is really a beautiful place. And I hope none of you have seen any mess when you drive down Grand Avenue. We had 3 days before Memorial Day weekend, we had a terrible storm that took the southwest quadrant of our 80, 90 acres, and it was just, everything was a mess there. And our staff, our manager and everything, they even took evenings to try and get it cleaned up so it'd be nice for Memorial Day. They're very loyal, they have 32-hour weeks. They do get some overtime, and we really have to have it, and sometimes it is that way. But their wages will have to be increased this year. It seems like $15 an hour now is getting to be the de facto minimum wage, and a lot of you are familiar with that. I'd just like to add to what Bob has said, that we think the 3%, that sentence you want to take off, provides something for a 5-year agreement. 5 years, we like to have something that's kind of a guarantee that we'll get something instead of having to renegotiate every year, every 2 years or something. And that was kind of the purpose of it. And so anyway, thank you so much for your support. And Pine Grove Cemetery officials, the board and so forth, we're really glad to be a part of Wasa, but we would request that you put the 3% back in.
Thank you very much. All right, that's all I have for pre-registered comments. Next on our agenda is our consent agenda. I will be pulling out that item that we just heard about, so we can discuss it separately. But other than that, it would be file 210901 through file 201205. I would be requesting a motion. Motion by Herbst. Second by Peckham. Any discussion here? Okay, I think we're good to vote on this.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, next up, we have file 010906. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee approving the First Amendment to the agreement between the City of Wasa and the Wasa Cemetery Association regarding the lease of the snow disposal site. I would entertain a motion to get us started. Motion by Larson, second by Neal. All right, yes, Alder Watson.
So I guess I just had some comments and then a couple questions for staff. So I was the person, I guess, that suggested to remove the 3% minimum on the CPI at Finance. And I guess my rationale was that over the last decade, the CPI hasn't really gone over 2%. And it is slated to be about 4.8%. That's what the Minneapolis Fed Reserve Bank has estimated for this coming 2021. But I thought to remove it just because lots of our things in our economy are adjusted by COLA, right? And so cost of living adjustments all sort of wrap into that CPI. And I did some crunching of the numbers, and if we did the CPI versus the 3% rent increase over the last 5 years, we would have saved in total $10,000 over that period of time, which granted, it's a drop in the bucket for the Wausau budget, but it's anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a year. But I guess my question about the snow removal site, the funding for that comes from, like, when we dump the site, where's that funding pulled from for this?
So this becomes part of our transportation budget. When the Cemetery Association came to the city many years ago, they were actually in, a difficult financial situation. And, as was mentioned, the state statutes does provide that if there is not the financial resources for a cemetery to function, that it is the job of a city to take over responsibility of the cemetery. And, there are communities that's taking place today. I believe, like in Stevens Point, city staff take care of the cemetery in Stevens Point. So, when we were looking at problem solving this situation, and they had estimated, that they needed, thinking back, it was probably $35,000 a year to fortify their budget to, meet their operating expenses. We did recommend establishing our annual payment as a snow dump site payment, because then it was eligible for transportation aids. It would be part of that formula, whereas if we were just making a payment to the cemetery as an annual subsidy, we wouldn't have gotten any additional state aids for that activity. So this way, it obviously is used for snow removal for our streets, so it's a valid transportation cost. So there is, an offsetting. Now, what that dollar amount is, there's a big formula that the state uses for transportation aids that includes, the number of miles and your costs, and of course, it's, limited to the pool of money that the city has, or that the state of Wisconsin has set aside for transportation aids, and how much we're spending on transportation costs versus the next community. But, most definitely, long-term, our transportation aids would go down if we stopped making, the same investment in our transportation costs. So it's, this is a valid cost. Certainly, to Alderman Watson's point, committing to that 3% is a cost, but if you looked at what the city's cost would be if we were performing those duties with city staff, with the benefits that we offer our employees, it would be substantially more for the taxpayers than subsidizing the cemetery's operations through this lease.
So I have a follow-up question too. In the agreement between the city and the Cemetery Association, paragraph 4 indicates that we receive quarterly financial statements.
Yeah, I do remember that being part of the discussions when the agreement was first crafted. I think maybe this has kind of fallen on the wayside. I didn't have a chance to check with the city clerk to see if those are getting submitted to them. Oh.
Yeah, you can. You'll help us understand this more by answering questions, definitely.
Yes, the lease does require that we send quarterly reports, and actually I was not aware that they weren't being sent, so if that's the case, I apologize. I suspect that part of the explanation is, and Marianne, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that Patty Grimm, our general manager, who unfortunately was murdered 2 years ago this month, was regular in sending those. We frankly went through a period of turmoil because of what happened on October 3rd of 2019. Then our treasurer, I think, was sending them to the city. We lost our treasurer due to resignation because of family issues a few months ago, and we have not found a replacement for her yet. So I suspect that that's part of the issue, but we will make sure to let our current general manager know. And between her and the accounting firm that's helping us, I know that we can start that again.
So, thank you. And I guess just to conclude my thoughts, I mean, obviously $10,000 is a drop in the bucket for the city of Wausau in total. But I don't know if there's a compromise between CPI. I anticipate over the next several years, at least CPI potentially will go up, and so this will be a moot point. But I think it's sort of fair to have it just adjusted by CPI, but I can understand that we don't want to take this burden on by ourselves. So, again, that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. Part of the discussion that we had in finance also with reference to CPI and the fact that CPI this year is expected to be up quite a bit. Yes, it can vary, but if we were to amend this item to restore the 3%, our contribution to the Cemetery Association this year effectively goes down by almost 2%. So, I think that's to be considered. But I would mention that the last time we discussed this contract 5 years ago, we did discuss the fact that there is tremendous value to our road maintenance crews being able to have an east side location where they can unload the snow that they're trucking out of areas versus having to take it even further or to find an alternate site to dump that snow. So, I mean, literally tons of snow every year are taken to the dump sites that we have. And, I think there's value to having those locations and, close to the routes where the stuff is coming out of. So, that said, we were aware then already that the Cemetery Association basically was operating on a shoestring. And we had agreed then that none of us wanted to be in the cemetery maintenance business. So, with that, given the fact that the variance between CPI and 3% over the course of that 10 years amounts to, 1,000 or 2,000 a year, I would be willing to amend the item to restore the 3% to the contract as proposed.
Okay, so we have an amendment. Do I need a second first before, or do you want to make a comment? City Attorney.
I just want to make a note that it's not a fixed 3%. It's a change up or down in CPI. So it could be lower than 3 or higher than 3, but it was set at no less than 3. So it's just set as a minimum of 3. But if it goes up to, like Alder Watson said, 4.6 or 4.8, then that's what we'll be paying. So it's not a matter of CPI changes or 3%. It's CPI changes was what she recommended, but now they want to restore the minimum 3%, but it still changes in CPI, so it's going to be different every year. It's just not going to go lower than 3%.
Okay,
And I
so-
think we crafted the resolution in such a way that if you approve it, we've crafted it in such a way that it meets their request to take that, I struck that from the first amendment that we put
You
in the
did, okay.
package. In case you changed your mind and you wanted to go back. So approving it in the affirmative, we've taken that back out to restore it to what they have requested if you approve this resolution the
Okay.
way it is. So I don't
So
know that it needs an amendment, is what I'm saying. We don't need to move to amend the resolution.
So where we're at now is CPI not to be below 3.
Correct.
Okay, I
So it's
think
still a
that,
change in CPI, but no less than 3%.
I think we can all live with that. Is that, I mean,
So we don't need an amendment, is what you're saying? So what is offered is no less than 3.
so that means then that their revenue from us can only go up, basically. I mean, it would only go up. I mean, if you're not going to be under 3, and CPI this year is expected to be more, even if CPI drops in the subsequent years, if you have a floor at 3,
Correct.
their revenue stream remains consistent.
And could go higher if
And
CPI
could
goes
go higher.
above 3.
That
Correct.
seems like a sensible approach. I'll withdraw the amendment.
Okay,
Thank you.
amendment withdrawn. I have a couple folks wanting to comment. Alder Peckham.
Yeah, thank you. I also support the keeping with the floor of 3%. And I actually just today became aware of another function for that property that benefits the city, and that's when We do the jetting of storm sewer drains. You suck water and leaves and stuff out of there. And there's a concrete facility that's fenced in and safe and all that, where they take that water and let it drain away, and then they can pick up the solids later. So kind of a multi-function year-round piece of property for the city, and I think it's sufficient value so that we shouldn't feel bad about this amount of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I think we're ready to vote on this resolution.
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, next up is file number 211003, mayor's appointments. We have two, reappointment of Doug Denny to the airport committee, and then an appointment of Gizo Ujirmeli for the business improvement district. I would entertain a motion. Motion by Killian, second by Rasmussen. Any comments? I'm not seeing any.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We are now on to file number 211005. It's a resolution from the Economic Development Committee authorizing participation in the Metro Wasa Housing Assessment through the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. I would entertain a motion. I've got a motion by Neil, second by Killian. Any comments or clarifications? Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I am for doing the assessment and the city participating in it. I guess I question whether coming to the Economic Development Committee as a kind of a home committee. I just think that we do have the Community Development Housing Authority that Tom Neal and I are on. And that I do think that with the interest in looking at affordable housing, that it may be something that we as a group have a committee of the whole to look at further housing in those issues, because economic development is more of looking at longer and bigger projects, and has been advocating for a lot of the high market rental, and to be looking at affordable rental or housing for those that have been homeless. And especially, I'm hoping this assessment will also look at the single room occupancy, which is a lot of the older motels that are designed for one person, and that they may have a microwave and a little refrigerator, and utilities included, are being used throughout the metro area. If you go down Grand Avenue, if you go on Stewart Avenue, even some of the other motels in our area, and that there are a number of people that just need a furnished place, have some large utility bills, so cannot afford to have utilities in their name, but are living in these single room occupancy because that's all they can afford. So I'm okay about going ahead with doing our portion for the city as part of this survey, but I do think we need a home to talk about affordable housing. And I'm not sure if it's something within the Community Development Housing Authority, meeting in conjunction with the committee as a whole, or if we need to look at another standing committee where all of the alders could be in attendance. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think we're all in attendance here, and I think we all can, make our relevant comments on the issue. I certainly support the regional nature of this study, and looking at not only affordable housing, but what has been defined as the missing middle, and knowing that what is happening in our neighboring communities is likely also happening in our community. So I think that it's important that we participate in this. With regard to the Economic Development Committee, its mission really is to generate tax base and evaluate the creation of tax base and the growth of our city whether we're growing it through business or residential, looking to attract new residents or workforce. And I think that as a standing committee, it's certainly an appropriate assignment. We have looked at housing initiatives in that committee as long as I've been a member of that committee and have done that effectively. So I think without adding any new standing committees, that certainly makes sense that it happens there. Committee of the whole is often used for items that don't fit within the mission of any other standing committee. And I think that the decision that was made in ED and that's been brought here tonight to participate is a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other comments. I think Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I support this assessment. It's a good bang for the buck when you look at our role in this and the other participants. So certainly an affordable assessment for us on affordable housing. Moving forward, though, yes, the Economic Development Committee, which I sit on, I think it does do the things that that District 7 described, but I think there's also aspects to affordable housing and the role of government that do not necessarily always align with just the expansion of tax base or ROI, that sometimes community development is the priority, not necessarily economic development in all circumstances. So I think all of these things, though, can work hand in hand, and they do not have to conflict or be mutually exclusive. So I had mentioned at the ED committee that, well, I support this. I think it's very important that we keep our eyes on the calendar and the clock, because there's a degree of urgency on the affordable housing matter that will not wait 18 months. So in the meantime, while the homework's being done, we still must act on these issues whenever the opportunity arises, and perhaps there are some novel opportunities in the next year and a half as this assessment is being done. But I think that often the more minds and the more discussion that is had on any given subject, often the better. And so on such an important community issue as affordable housing, I think Alder Ryan's suggestion of a committee of the whole discussion or agendizing this for a committee of the whole would be a positive idea, and certainly wouldn't get in the way of either this assessment or other affordable housing initiatives. So I think that was a good suggestion by Alder Ryan. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other comments pending. I think we're ready to vote.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you very much. We are now on to file number 211006, a resolution from the Economic Development Committee approving the sale of 906 South 7th Avenue. I would entertain a motion. Motion by Rasmussen, second by Neal. Any discussion or questions? I don't see any.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, we are now on to file number 211004. It's a resolution from the Plan Commission approving certified survey map for 3015 Town Line Road. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Neal and a second by Martins. Any discussion or questions? Nobody has their light on. I think we're ready to go.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. Moving on, another ordinance now from the Plan Commission. It's file number 211004. It's an ordinance rezoning 3015 Town Lane Road from an institutional zoning district to a single-family residential zoning district, rural holding zoning district, and a planned unit development zoning district. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Herbst and a second by Wadzinski. Any questions or comments? I don't see any.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. Here's the part where I ask you to suspend the rules. 6B, filing, and 12A, referral of resolutions. This does require a 2/3 vote. I would entertain the motion. Motion by Neal, second by Wadinsky. You don't get to debate this.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. Rules are suspended. We're now into file number 010725. It's a resolution authorizing the proper city officials to divide the city into 22 wards based on the 2020 census and resulting redistricting. Maybe before I entertain a motion, I would let, Marianne, you and I have kind of been dealing with this. Do you want to just describe here what we're doing?
Sure, I think
Expert.
every time the federal government performs a census, redistricting occurs. It's basically managed by the county and the state of Wisconsin initially, so the schedule is running very late this year because of COVID, because the census was delayed due to the ongoing COVID issues in collecting data. You know, obviously, boundaries are modified due to growth that occurs throughout the state and the county. So the county adopts the proposed wards. Last year, 10 years ago, when the census was completed, the county informed us that we were losing a county board supervisor seat because our population had not grown in the same relation that the rest of the county did. And we always try to have the same county board districts as we do our common council, because you can imagine if they were different, we would have to have more wards to accommodate the differences in the supervisory, the county board supervisory, and the common council. So we try to accommodate that. So 10 years ago, we actually reduced the size of our common council to meet the size of county board within our corporate boundaries. This year, thankfully, we are not in that same situation. So there is some, I guess, changes to accommodate, you know, based on the proposal that the county has made. But that's what is presented. Unfortunately, we received this last week, I think, from the county, and by statute, we have to have our thumbs up or thumbs down or changes to the county board by October 16th. So there is very little wiggle room in our time to look at this map. So, you know, like I said, there's not a lot of changes. It's unfortunate that there have to be changes because, of course, this has implications for elections, because we now will be required to inform all of our voters if their boundaries have changed. They might need to go to a different voting site. And so the next step, if you approve this, it will go back to the county board for final approval, and then our work to inform our taxpayers or our voters on the changes for the election, because this year is going to be a busy year. So we definitely want people to know where is the appropriate place for them to vote.
And then we'll bring an ordinance back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bring the ordinance back after that.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, it will come back to council once the county board gives its final approval.
Okay, I see a bunch of people that want to talk. I just want to remind you, we don't have a motion yet. But if you've got questions, I think it's appropriate to ask them now. Alder Peckham, we saw you first.
Yeah, I was just wondering, moving the wards is one thing, moving the aldermanic district lines is another. Do we have any handle on before and after on that? I mean, are there significant changes, or did they just move? Did they have to make many moves at all?
I think probably one of the most significant was they changed the numbering so that, like, people that maybe you had a higher number before, now it's a smaller number. So if you were District 11, you might be District number 4 now or something, right?
There was like 53 wards before.
Oh,
so
yeah,
this
that's the other thing.
This reduces it, which makes paperwork for elections much better.
Yay.
because we have to keep, records on every single ward. So this just combines the wards down so they're all fairly equal in population.
Good point, because after every annexation, we have to create a new ward. Every time there's an annexation, the state law requires us to do that. So the implications of that are we get these really small wards that have,
One voter,
one or
0.
two voters or,
always
a
wondered why
small
we did that.
handful. Yeah, so this allows us, as Mary pointed out, to accumulate those wards.
Looks like we have a follow-up.
So all of the alders are continuing to represent an equal number of people,
Correct.
but some of those lines are moving?
Yes.
I was watching the executive committee for the county board where they were debating this, and one of the things they tried to do was keep each district within 10% of the other district. So I think everybody is still representing whatever 3,000 plus whatever handful
Yeah,
of
we got about
voters. Yeah.
3,500 people,
Yeah.
I think. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. So with the redrawn maps, have we verified whether or not any of our aldermanic districts are picking up additional or losing entire wards? Has there been any analysis? I mean, we're going to have the same number of voters essentially, but, we're not going to go through this process with the county and suddenly find out that District 11 is now District 4. I mean, are we going to have, do we still have the same basic map, I guess is, there's no variation here outlining what the change is from the before and after, and I think that's what Pat was trying to ask you. And, as alders, we first and foremost need to verify that we still live in our areas. And, with some of us, that variance is a block, literally a block.
Yep.
So, if this map is accurate and the color coding is accurate, it's probably not too severe, but we still need to verify that before we all vote for this.
So we did look at that to see if, right,
Yes. Yes,
Because,
we
at
did.
one point, when District 3 was split, and they ended up on both sides of the river, and, when District 11 was redrawn, they ended up on both sides of the highway. That's a whole different landmass, even though you have the same number of people. And so then you have a, totally different constituency. Is that happening to anyone in here?
I don't believe so, that there would be a big change in constituency.
Okay, because there was last time. We had some major changes when we got rid of that number 12.
yeah, and I was reminded of that by somebody on that executive committee who was drawn into a district with another county board supervisor, and that really didn't happen this time.
Okay, all right, that
Not
was all
for
I needed.
us. There's some of that on the county side, but that's their problem.
Okay, it is. Thank you.
Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I had thought from looking at, I don't know, maybe it was Leslie as city clerk referencing at a certain year, we were up to 39,000, and I thought from some preliminary information, we're down to 37. So I guess I'm concerned, are we going to be losing potentially an alderperson district?
No, you wouldn't be losing. There would be 22 wards. Each council member would have 2 wards, so that would be 11 council districts. And there would still be 11 county board supervisors overseeing or representing the city proper.
Our deputy clerk has pulled up the map with the wards, and we're interpreting it as the districts
Yeah.
are similar, the same
Yeah.
when it comes to wards. So that question is officially answered, and thank you. Okay, at this point, I would need a motion, I believe, to accept this and send it back to the county. I have a motion by Neal, second by Rasmussen. Any other comments people would like to make? Okay, I think we're ready to go ahead and vote on it then.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. You'll see this again. All right, we are now moving on to file number 120217. It's a joint, a joint resolution from HR and Finance, fully implementing the 2019 wage study. Would entertain a motion. Got a motion by Rasmussen, second by Wadinski. Any comments? Yes, Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. Just that both of the items that were from finance tonight that you see before you that don't have a voting result, those did pass unanimously. And we met right before this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Otherwise, I think we are ready to vote on this one.
Begin voting.
Do we have some non-voters?
Yeah, I think because he pressed.
Oh.
Can Lisa, Sarah, Lou, and Deb vote again? They got nullified. There we go. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. One of your compatriots pushed the wrong button. Okay. Next up is file number 121012. It's another joint resolution from HR and Finance authorizing health, dental, and supplemental insurance plan design for 2022. Would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Larson. I have a second by Martins. Any discussion or questions in need? Okay, I'm not seeing any.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
Yeah, could I circle back to the ward thing? I do want to say one thing that, perhaps we should have said earlier. When the county presented us with the map, we actually did find that Deb Ryan and Dawn Herbst were in the same district. And so we did ask for a modification to separate that. So if you look at the map here, you can see this little bitty jig in blue here. Before, this territory was in Dawn Herbst's district, and when they drew the map initially, that area was no longer, and so we would have had 2 aldermen. We did ask for this modification, and they explained to us our procedure was for you to adopt it like this, and then we would submit it to the county, and the county, again, when we looked at the numbers in each one of the districts, this district in blue was actually had fewer than average taxpayers in it or voters to begin with. And so it actually improved those ratios. But we should have probably said that. I was just taken off guard because I didn't know I was going to have to talk. So I
like to-
apologize
I like
for
to
that. But
surprise you. Sorry.
I do want to make sure that we give complete information. So when this goes to the county next week, and they vote on it, they'll be either approving this or not approving it, but they didn't see any reason why they would not approve it. But I do want to disclose that.
Thank you. Okay. I think we are ready now to move on to file number 121012. It's a resolution from the Human Resources Committee authorizing CCIT inclusion on the city's health, dental, vision, and supplemental insurance plan design for 2022 and 2023. Would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Rasmussen, a second by Larson. Any question or discussion? Not seeing any.
Begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. We are now on the last item here, more public comment and suggestions. If there is anyone who didn't get a chance to speak but wants to. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone from the public. We'll adjourn, and then you'll be able to make your announcement, Alder Ryan. So we just need you to turn your light off. Thank you. Okay. I'm not seeing any public comment. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Last motion I'm looking for is a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Larson and a second by Neal. All in favor can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And last up, we have an announcement by Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to alert those in the meeting as well as those at home that the Westies neighborhood will be meeting tomorrow night at the Labor Temple at 6 o'clock, and we use the 4th Avenue entrance for the second floor. So those of you interested, I hope you'll join us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone, have a good night.